Indigenous and luxury are not words you usually hear in the same sentence, but when it comes to Canadian fashion designer Angela de Montigny, nothing is usual.
I'm a 100% Indigenous-owned company and business. The concepts are all authentic. It's a great vehicle to get messages across.
Born into a Cree-Métis family on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Angela was a child of a stolen generation of Native Americans forcibly cut off from their traditional roots.
So I grew up not really knowing a whole lot about my Indigenous roots. I had to sort of learn a lot on my own.
Through fashion, Angela has slowly pieced back together the story of her complex heritage and taken that story to the world stage, reimagined in luxury looks that do anything but bind the stereotypical tale of poverty and disenfranchisement told in pop media. In this FIB exclusive, our Skype chat with Angela de Montigny reveals all about the designer and her unique mission of fashion reconciliation.
People don't put Indigenous and luxury, those two words, together. There's assumptions and sort of stereotypical views that I fight, even now, after I've been doing this for so long, where people have an idea in their head of what they think Indigenous fashion is. And so they have a stereotypical idea, and it must involve feathers and fringe and beads and things like that, and definitely they don't think high fashion. So until I actually show them what I do, they have a completely incorrect assumption of what that is. You hope that you actually get the chance to show them that that's not what this is, but sometimes you don't. It's an interesting kind of situation sometimes. When you think about, from a cultural appropriation point of view, when you look at how our clothing in the past has influenced mainstream clothing around the world, like anything with fringe on it, has come from us. Like, the impact that it has had around the world is really quite phenomenal. So it's just looking at the importance of how we dressed and the effect that it's had on the world, how it's been used against us, how it has been taken from us, and then when you come to that whole cultural appropriation piece, when you've taken a people's culture, their land, their language, their clothing, and left them with nothing, basically, and then you copy our art and our clothing and make money from it. It's really about us taking things back. So we're doing it in our own way, on our own terms, and that's created sort of, a lot of motivation and inspiration for those of us in the industry. There's lots of young designers coming up behind me, and so I also want to sort of provide a legacy for them. I'm the co-founder of an organization here in Hamilton called the Ontario Fashion Exchange. So I'm working with other post-secondary education institutions, whether universities or colleges, so that all these designers that are coming out of these fashion programs have the ability to have their collections made so that they could have really great, thriving businesses as well. When I was in South Africa, there was an opportunity to work with an African artist and do a collaborative collection. And I have, in the last number of years, sort of started to get connected and build relationships with other Indigenous designers in, let's say, the Maori in New Zealand, the Sami in Norway. There's definitely, those relationships being built and those opportunities. I do carry the work of other artisans, and so I've now started to do collaborations with them. So I would have them create jewelry pieces, things that I wouldn't normally do myself, and give them the inspiration to have them do them exclusively for my collection. I give them the sort of artistic direction, but then I let them come up with something that's their own and unique. And it's a wonderful synergy where I get to promote their work in addition to my collection. and it seems to work really well. The newest collection that I just launched in London is called Of the Stars. And so the inspiration is based on an ancient Anishinaabe story about the 7 daughters of the stars, which is actually the Pleiades. So there are other cultures, even in Greek mythology, that have stories about that star system. But most indigenous nations have creation stories that say that we come from the stars. It's just showing those links. And, in our culture, we have relationships with our ancestors in the stars. They tell about who we are and our connection to the world. And that is knowledge which is actually quite important, I believe. I've done embroidered symbols and stars and suns and moons, and they're on some of the pieces, and even on one of the jackets, which is kind of like the signature piece for the collection, and it has fringe on the sleeves, and on the back yoke, I've actually had the word of the stars embroidered in Cree language, which a lot of people have never seen before. And it looks really cool. And so, people will be like, wow, so what is that? So it's, something to talk about and teach people this is what this is. The one previous to that was the Respect collection. And so that was centered around my honoring the buffalo, which was a very, very important animal to my people. What it represents is respect. But I wanted that word to be sort of out in a larger context. So I did decide to put it on t-shirts and hats and things like that so that people would get that word. So it represents respect for everything, basically, not just the buffalo. I did a beautiful silk prints, like skirts and a dress and tank tops and things. So that was a little departure of incorporating the silk pieces. I'm very proud of my heritage, and so I want to show the beauty of our culture, of the art of it, the stories. I want to start creating that awareness and dialogue so that people can see that we're not extinct. Even though we are contemporary people now, we are still connected to our ancestors and to all of that culture from the past that is still very much part of us. It's not gone anywhere. So it's just creating that understanding for people of who we are and where we came from, and that's still very much part of us. My name is Angela de Montigny, and I am an Indigenous designer from Canada, and you are watching the Fashion Industry Broadcast.